not stepped foot in UBC in months, or in some of your cases, ever, we still operate on UBC's infrastructure, which is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. I would like to start by thanking all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in our event. We really appreciate you coming. So, how are you guys all doing? Where are you zooming in from today? If you could just type it in the chat. So, also, this meeting will be recorded, so feel free to turn your camera off if you don't want to be included in the recording. So, whoa, we've got a lot of people local, Vancouver, West Vancouver, Richmond. We've got some people from Toronto, Bangkok, really cool, Nanaimo, Delta. So a lot of locals and some international people as well. Very cool. So if any of you have any questions or inquiries about UBC Psyched, there are a number of ways you can contact us. Listed here is our email, website, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We also have a Slido where you can ask us any questions you may have about the presentation, the panelists, or UBC psychology in general. You can access it using this QR code here, or you can enter this code on the Slido website, which is sli.do. You can ask questions anonymously, and the most popular question will be pushed to the top. With the formalities out of the way, let's talk about psychology. There's also a link in the Zoom chat. So the field of psychology is concerned with understanding and explaining the human experience at all levels, from the firing of individual neurons all the way to population level distributions of personality traits. It's the study of being human. And as such, it's involved with everything. And there are a ton of domains and subdomains and subdomains. There's music psychology, cultural psychology, sports psychology, marketing psychology, and a whole lot more. So for this presentation, we'll just describe some of the big boys. Social psychology investigates how we behave in social situations. It asks questions like, how do we treat people that aren't part of our group? And how much will we hurt someone when ordered to by an authority figure? Clinical psychology involves psychological dysfunction or distress and asks questions like, what is depression? What causes depression? And how can we improve the lives of people suffering from depression? Developmental psychology is concerned with how we change over the course of our lives, especially during childhood. Developmental psychologists answer questions like how much of our development is due to genetics and how much is due to the environment. And do we develop in stages? And what might those stages be? Cognitive psychology is the study of mental processes or how we think. A cognitive psychologist would think about questions like, how does language affect the way we think? And how do we remember things? Biological psychologists investigate the biological bases of everything previously mentioned. And I feel bad for them because they have to take all of this crazy nonsense, emotion, memory, personality, etc., and trying to figure out how it all works mechanically on the level of neurotransmitters and cells and hormones and all of that confusing stuff. So, psychology is interesting and all, but what can you do with it? Here are some potential career paths for people with a psychology background. There's what we call psychology on the art side with opportunities in research, counseling, and education. Then there is behavioral neuroscience on the sciences side with careers in medicine, law, and veterinarian work, and cognitive systems with the potential to go into computer science or artificial intelligence, among other things. So let's talk a little bit about our school. UBC is a top 5 university in Canada and a top 20 university worldwide, and it carries with it a certain reputation and prestige. From my own personal experience, it is very popular among my mom's friends. When not in quarantine, students enjoy learning on a beautiful and modern campus that almost feels like its own little town. UBC also provides students with an abundance of research, professional, and personal opportunities, something we'll come back to later. So Now we will talk about UBC psychology specifically and what a psychology student at UBC might need to know. We'll talk about different programs, the degree timeline and requirements, courses and credits, and the psychology community, other opportunities, and finally, the application process. So the most popular psychology program at UBC is the BA Psychology program, Bachelor of Arts Psychology program, with the Bachelor of Science Behavioral Neuroscience program, the Bachelor of Science Cognitive Systems program, and the Bachelor of Arts Speech Sciences program coming after. And you might have wondered, what's the difference between Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science? The differences are in focus, application requirements, and graduation requirements. The Bachelor of Arts program will allow you to explore a broad range of psychology courses that may not require understanding at a chemical or biological level, while the Bachelor of Science program will focus on biological processes in the nervous system. Unlike the Bachelor of Arts program, the Bachelor of Science program is competitive and requires an application. Finally, the Bachelor of Science program involves completing the basic requirements for the Faculty of Sciences, which include first-year science courses like chemistry and biology. So regardless of which you choose, you will need to take the two first-year introductory psychology courses, which provide a broad overview of all the domains mentioned previously. Then, in your second year, you will need to take a couple courses on research methods, which differ depending on your faculty. Next, we will have a brief overview of the requirements for the psychology program. In your first year, you will complete Psych 101 and 102 and your writing component, and then fill the rest of your time with any electives that might interest you. In your second year, you will take your 2 research methods courses, complete your literature, science, and language requirements, and again, pick some interesting electives. In your upper years, you will have more freedom to pick a wide variety of psychology courses or any electives that might interest you or make up for missing requirements. But don't worry, UBC provides students with a very convenient tool called the Degree Navigator that will help you figure out if you're missing anything. For some upper level courses, however, make sure that you have completed any prerequisites. Right, let's take a look at the steps you will need to take for your degree. At the end of your first year, you will declare your major for the Bachelor of Arts side and apply for the Behavioral Neuroscience or Cognitive Systems programs on the Bachelor of Science side. Then in the second term of your second year, you'll be able to apply for the honors programs. Science students will also be able to apply for their major, whether that is behavioral neuroscience or cognitive systems. And now I will hand it over to our next presenter, Maria.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria. I'm a 4th year UBC student, and I'm currently completing a Bachelor of Science in Behavioral Neuroscience. I'm also the current Vice President Internal of the UBC chapter of Psyched. Also, I just wanted to remind you that if you have any questions during this event, to please use Slido. The link to Slido should be in the Zoom chat box. Okay. So first, I'm going to be talking about some really popular upper-level psychology courses that are available at UBC. First, let's discuss forensic psychology. This is a course that discusses the intersection between law and psychology and touches on cool topics such as the psychology of criminal investigations and different interrogation tactics. Another really popular course is gambling and decision making. This course explores clinical perspectives on disordered gambling. One of my all-time favorite courses at UBC is Applied Developmental Psychology. In this class, you are actually able to raise a virtual child from infancy to adulthood, and you can apply the research and the knowledge that you learn in class to the parenting decisions you make with your virtual child. And then you can see how these parenting decisions impact your virtual child's development. Another really cool course is Personality Psychology. This course analyzes different celebrities' personalities, such as Donald Trump and Steve Jobs. One of my other favorite courses is Brain Dysfunction and Recovery. This course discusses what happens when the brain becomes dysfunctional, and to what extent the brain can repair or compensate for this dysfunction. For example, this course touches on topics such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and different language and visual impairments. If you are currently taking AP classes or pursuing your IB diploma, you might be wondering if courses you are currently taking or have previously taken may be eligible for transfer credits at UBC. Common courses that high school students gain transfer credit for include Psychology 100, first year chemistry, biology, computer science, language credits, and many other courses. If you're wondering if you're eligible, you can follow the QR code on this slide. And just a reminder that these slides will also be available to you after the event. There are a wide variety of psychology clubs at UBC that you can get involved in. There's the Psychology Students Association of UBC, the UBC Neuroscience Club, and the UBC chapter of Psyched, which is the International Honor Society of Psychology. And this is both the organization that I am a part of and the organization that is facilitating this event. There is also the UBC Undergraduate Journal of Psychology and the Cognitive Systems Society of UBC. There are a variety of labs in the psychology department that provide both volunteer and paid positions for UBC students. To name a few, there is the Social Health Lab, the Social Cognitive Development Lab, the Culture and Morality Lab, the Language Development Center, the Cognitive Neuroscience Lab, the Depression, Anxiety, and Stress Lab, and the Center for Gambling Research at UBC, as well as the Soma Lab. I will talk a little bit about the Soma Lab, as I've been a research assistant in the Soma Lab for the past 2 years. In the Soma Lab, our focus is on neuroendocrinology, the study of hormones in the brain, and neuroimmunology, which studies the interaction between the nervous system and the immune system. And this is a very up and coming new field. I have loved being involved in research, and I would completely recommend that when you begin your journey at UBC, you reach out to labs that you are interested in and ask if you can get involved. Most labs are always looking for more volunteer research assistants and would love to hear from you. Other non-academic opportunities that are available for UBC students include the Glow Global program. UBC Glow Global is partnered with many schools around the globe. Many students describe their exchange as one of the highlights of their university career. Many students choose to go on exchange during their 3rd year. So if this is something that interests you, I would definitely keep this in mind during your degree planning. There's also a Work Learn program. I personally love the Work Learn program and have held a variety of positions during my undergraduate degree. Currently, I'm a research assistant in the Soma Lab, and previously, I've been a daycare assistant at Huckleberry Daycare, working with children aged 1 to 3. I gained hands-on experience with kids. However, there are a wide variety of different Work-Learn positions, and I believe that all Work-Learn positions provide a great opportunity because they provide flexible hours that allow you to balance a part-time position with your coursework. Another great opportunity is the co-op program. There's either the science or the arts UBC co-op program, depending on your degree. The co-op program provides an opportunity for students to gain professional development in their respective field while still working towards their degrees. So something that may be on a lot of your minds is the UBC application. Don't worry, it's not as scary as it seems. There are 2 components of the UBC application that determine the strength: your GPA and your personal profile. Your personal profile includes things like your volunteer work, your sports involvement, your community involvement, as well as your commitment to these activities, including how long you have participated in the activity and how often you participate per week. I would totally advise you to start early on this so that you can take time to reflect on what you have learned from each activity. How did these activities allow you to grow as a person? Make sure to use your authentic, genuine voice. Do not just say what you think the admissions team wants you to hear. Instead, show who you are in this part of your application and describe those unique activities that have helped you grow as a person and allow you to stand out in the applicant pool. I also think it's a great idea to ask family members, friends, and peers to look over your application. They generally have super valuable feedback for you. If you have any more questions regarding the application process, you can follow the QR code on this slide for lots of tips and tricks. Now to switch gears, let's talk a little bit about the mentorship program, which will begin after this event. So the aim of the mentorship program is to support prospective UBC students with tips regarding the UBC application, adjusting to post-secondary education, academic and non-academic opportunities at UBC, and allow mentors to provide you with their own personal experiences in their undergraduate degree. So who is eligible? Well, all high school students in grade 11 and 12 who are interested in the BAs of psychology, the Bachelor of Science in Behavioral Neuroscience, or the BA or Bachelor of Science in Cognitive Systems programs. So who might I be paired with? Who are the mentors? All of the mentors are either current UBC students or UBC alumni who are experienced in either of the three programs. How does it work? So if you've already said yes on the event sign-up form, please just wait. We're going to email you within the next 2 weeks with your pairing of your future mentor. We will also try our best to match you with a mentor in your preferred program. If you said no or maybe, no worries. We'll reach out to you again after this event, just to see if possibly you've changed your mind and you do want to take a mentor. Once you have been matched with a mentor, you can begin communicating with your mentor through email or Zoom. Either is totally up to you. We also really want to emphasize that this program was organized for you as students. It was organized with the purpose of helping you and providing more guidance during the UBC application process and the transition into university. This program is mentee-centered, meaning that you control how you communicate with your mentor, whether that's only over email or email and the occasional Zoom call, that is completely up to you, as well as how often you communicate with your mentor. Don't feel any pressure to communicate with your mentor constantly. If you don't have any questions for them, that is completely okay, and they know that you might not always have something to ask. You also control which conversation topics you want to discuss with your mentor. Whether your conversations are about study tips or course planning, for example, that is completely up to you. You can choose what conversations you want to have depending on what you want your mentor to help you with. You also have the option to remain completely anonymous during the mentorship program. You can use a different name or email than what you submitted in the form. You might also be able to, at any time, request a different mentor if you feel that it isn't the right match for you. We completely understand, and we want you to be with the best possible mentor for you. You also don't have to give us an explicit reason for the switch if you don't want to. You just have to let us know that you want to switch. We will also be checking in once a month by emailing you a mentor feedback form that you can fill out to provide feedback on your mentor. If you want to use a different name or email than what you submitted in the form, please reach out to me after the event. Now I will introduce Jenny, who will be leading the Q&A portion of this event and will be introducing our 6 amazing panelists that we have here for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Daniel, as well, for taking us through that. So yeah, my name is Jenny, you guys. I'm currently a third-year psychology student, and I'm part of the UBC Psyched internal team and the team that is bringing you guys this event and also the mentorship program. I'm also a research assistant with the Emotion and Self Lab here at UBC, and I'm super excited to be talking to you guys. Just before I continue, I would just like to once again remind you guys about Slido. If you do have any questions, please put it on there and we will get to them after we do our Q&A session with the panelists. So having said that, let's get to meet our panelists. So our first panelist is Kavya. She is a UBC alumni. She recently graduated this past May with a Bachelor of Science in the Cognitive Systems program. Throughout her undergraduate experience, she gained experience with research in the computer science and behavioral neuroscience labs. And she also got the chance to be a part of a student-led app development program, which is super interesting. And she currently works as a software developer in Toronto, but she also dabbles with project management. So thank you, Kavya, for being here. Our next panelist is Abhi, who is a third year in the psychology program. He's also one of the co-presidents of the UBC Psych chapter this year. And he also currently works as a research assistant with the Depression, Anxiety, and Stress Lab. And his main areas of interest within psychology lie in the intersection between personality, abnormal, and health psychology. So thank you, Abhi, for being here. Our third panelist is Nick. Nick is a 4th year currently studying behavioral neuroscience. He's a research assistant with the Coping with Neurological Symptoms Lab, as well as the Depression, Anxiety, and Stress Lab. Additionally, he also is part of the UBC Neuroscience Lab, where he spends time mentoring incoming undergraduate students. Thank you, Nick. We really appreciate you being here. Our fourth panelist is Ria. She is a fourth year majoring in psychology and minoring in education. She's also a part of the UBC Psyched team. She's our vice president of events. She's been involved in multiple peer support positions at UBC, and she's also been on the Dean's List for the past few years and has received a total of 7 awards from UBC for academic and community accomplishments, which is really great. Her personal activities have included mentoring international students and also having been involved in designing a mental health intervention program for adolescents in India. So thank you, Ria, for being here. Our next panelist I'd like to introduce you guys to is Katerina. She's a second year studying behavioral neuroscience. She has received multiple awards from UBC, and she's also on our UBC Psyched team as an executive coordinator. She's done lots of things, but some of her accomplishments include working as a behavioral data analyst for the Sierra Epigenetics Lab, working as a UBC tandem language peer tutor, and also having been involved in the most recent Indicium STEM competition. And her favorite research focus is neuroplasticity in regards to post-trauma language learning. Super interesting. Thank you for being here, Katerina. And our last panelist I'd like to introduce you guys to is Greta. She is currently in her 5th and final year of her undergraduate degree in the psychology program. She has experience working with research labs at UBC, as well as involvement in multiple clubs, including the Intersectional Perspectives in Psychology Club, as well as Common Energy UBC. Outside of that, she also has work experience applying psychology to communications and marketing and graphic design. So that concludes our introductions for our panelists. So I think we can just start asking some of the questions that we have ready, and you guys can sort of chime in whichever questions you'd like to answer, okay? So the first question I'd like to ask you guys is, how did you know that your program was right for you? When did you realize, and what helped you to really realize that this was what you wanted to pursue in university?
I can go first.
Oh,
yeah, sure, Nick, go for it.
Awesome. I would say I definitely didn't realize the program was right for me until I was in it. I think that I started to realize that once I would actually sit down to study, and it wouldn't feel like as much of a chore because you start to specialize in things you're more interested in, and the studying just kind of becomes more natural. I also realized I really, really liked the program when I saw the sense of community in the classroom, at least with the Bachelor of Science in Behavioral Neuroscience. I believe the classes are only around 80 to 100 people for your core neuroscience classes. And you get to stay with the same group of peers for, I believe, second to fourth year in a lot of your classes. So you'll get familiar with your peers, you'll make friendships with your peers, and you'll have the same people in your classes, which is really, really helpful.
I'll go next. I took psychology in the IB in grade 11 and 12. So it was a very general overview on basic things of psychology. And that was my favorite class in high school. I was so excited to go to class every time. And then when thinking about UBC, I looked at all the psychology courses at UBC. I'm in the BA psychology program, by the way. And I was like, wow, there is so much diversity in all the types of courses you can take. And that really excited me, from abnormal psychology to developmental to personality and forensic, as Maria mentioned earlier. That really excited me. So I kind of knew even before going to UBC that BA psychology is for me, and I made that decision out.
Okay, good. Really great. Okay, great. I was just wondering, yeah, perfect.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I kind of chose my program because I was really indecisive of what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure if I wanted to 100% commit to a pre-med route or a research route, or if I wanted to go dabble into some technology and, kind of explore that. which is why I think like the cognitive systems program was really good for me, because there's 4 different streams you could choose in science or arts. But regardless of which one you choose, you, as part of our like degree requirements, you will get exposure to psychology and computer science and philosophy. And so it was kind of a good combination for me. And after like, I would say 4th year is when I kind of realized that I was really enjoying more of the technical component of my degree more. But I also really like the psychology aspect of it. So I wanted to look for positions and jobs afterwards and after grad that kind of intersected that. So I think my degree gave me a good background with that.
Would anybody else like to answer?
I'd be happy to answer. Or
Go ahead.
Would you like to go? Okay. I actually started off my first year thinking I would go into cognitive systems, and I thought that was what I was particularly interested in. I was excited about studying comp sci. And after taking a few introductory comp sci classes, 110 and 121 specifically, and also introductory psych with Jay Hosking, one of our great psych profs here. I found that I was leaning towards the biology of psych a lot more than the comp sci, which led me to focus on behavioral neuroscience in the BSc degree. So the great thing about UBC, I think, for the first year is that you get the opportunity to look at the different classes you could be interested in and then decide afterwards what program better suits you. You have a lot of flexibility in your first year. So.
Yeah, I came into university like dead set on doing psychology and eventually going into grad school for clinical psychology. And that is the path that I have decided to go down as well. But in my first and second years, like, again, there's so much diversity in classes that you're taking that I was like falling in love with biology. I was falling in love with anthropology. I was falling in love with fine arts. And there was like a good 2 years where I wasn't sure anymore and I was changing my mind all the time. So I think it's really good to come into your program being flexible, because you might change your mind and you might not. And either way, that's cool.
I just want to add one point. Like, my experience has been quite similar to the things already mentioned about like being really interested in psychology from high school onwards. And what I want to particularly highlight is that something I noticed in first year is that the way the psychology program is designed, if you're taking like the arts degree, for instance, it does give you a lot more flexibility and time to pursue other interests in comparison to my peers who I would see were in engineering or computer science. They barely had time apart from classes to be able to even, pursue either part-time work or any volunteer interest, or even sometimes self-care. But with the way psychology program is designed, I feel like it does give you enough time to be able to pursue any interest of yours. And I really value that, because a university degree is not just about taking those classes. There's a lot more learning that happens outside of those classes, and you want to be in a program that gives you that opportunity. So that's the reason why I particularly like the psychology program and felt really happy that I've chosen it.
All right, that's really good. So I guess some of the common themes I'm hearing are being willing to be flexible with what you might decide on as your interests change, and being willing also to explore different things that might interest you. So thank you guys so much for sharing that. Sort of piggybacking off that a little bit, the next question I'd like to ask is, what has been some of the best or most enjoyable parts of your program, and what have been some parts that have been perhaps a bit more challenging for you to deal with, or that were slightly unexpected, for example?
I can start this one off again if you guys want. I'd say in terms of the best aspects, in the behavioral neuroscience program, again, is going to be smaller class sizes. A lot of other lectures you'll go into, like first year biology or first year chemistry, you'll be in a lecture with up to maybe 300 or 400 students. But since the neuroscience program only takes in, I think, 80 or 100 students per year, you'll be with that same cohort. I also really like the fact that you get to study sheep brains and real human brains for neuroanatomy in your second year. I don't know if the Bachelor of Arts program has any opportunities for that, but I really liked that aspect, very hands-on for learning. And I also liked that there's term-long research projects. So in Psych 277, 278, and 270, you will be working in the background, aside from lectures, on a research project for the entire term. It was a great way to work with peers. You get to write a paper at the end, get an idea for what academia is like, and that was great. In terms of the worst things, I would say scaling is definitely an issue. Well, not an issue, but it's not a great thing. In psych and in neuroscience, your final grades of your class are going to be scaled to a certain average. I believe in arts, it's around 68% to 70% class averages. And in science, I think that's up at 75%. So this can work either in your favor or against your favor. Some years, if the average is too low, the prof will bump up everyone's grades. But if the average is too high, everyone will get their final grades down a couple percent to bring the average back down to an acceptable level.
Yeah, I can go next. So, as I kind of said earlier, one of the things I enjoyed about the cognitive systems program was just getting exposure to multiple different areas of interest. Another good thing to kind of piggyback off of what Nick was saying was a research project. So for us, like a graduation requirement is we have to take a course where it's entirely research based. And so it kind of gave me that experience that I would have had elsewhere, to work in a real research lab alongside professors and write a full-blown paper that I didn't think I was capable of doing. In terms of the worst parts of my degree, I would say that because my program was very, I would take courses from psychology, I would take courses from computer science, from philosophy, all of that. I feel like I never got to see the same group of people all the time. So I know some people enjoy having those programs where you kind of get a closer knit group, you see the same people all 4 years or at least a couple of years. I kind of bounced around a lot because all my classes would be from different, departments, and they would just be with different people. And I think this might go for everyone, is there's always going to be those courses that you need to take for the sake of getting your degree that you're not maybe necessarily fully interested in. So I had a lot of those prerequisite courses that I just needed to take for the sake of taking them. There were a lot that I really enjoyed and was super interested in, but it's never enjoyable to take those courses you don't actually care too much about. So that would be mine.
I could go next. In terms of what I really like, I think I've mentioned it a little bit about how there's so much flexibility to pursue other interests. So I had a chance to do like a work learn position. I had a chance to do a part-time job that doesn't come under work learn, but pursue different interests like that, time to volunteer, time to do research. So I really appreciate that, because these are all like experimental opportunities of learning, as well as like I did have time to do an international service learning opportunity as well. So I feel like there are a lot of opportunities in UBC to be able to pursue any interest that you might have. In terms of what I don't like is, I think there's a lot of emphasis put on how psychology ties in with research, but there's like so many other professions that a psychology degree can equip you well for. I know a lot of alumni who've gone into law. As we mentioned before, there's law, there's forensics, there's marketing. I know people who've done real estate. So it's quite broad. And I just feel like it would have been really nice if I had an event like this in the first year of being a UBC student, just to know about where all the UBC degree, psychology degree can be applied, so that when I was applying for different volunteer positions, I think I could have like tailor made it based on where all a psych degree can be applied. I just thought it's only like academia and research in the first few years. So I was only trying to gain experience in those areas. But now that I know it can be applied to different spheres, I'm trying to gain more variety of experiences. So I think just knowing about it earlier through events like these would have been really helpful.
Greta, do you want to go?
Yeah.
Sure. I will say that one of my favorite things, kind of building off of what Ria said, is just how widely applicable psychology can be. I've applied like social and cultural psychology to classes in the German faculty. I've applied psychology of religion to Scandinavian studies. It's really interesting to like take electives and see how your core faculty overlaps. I think one of the worst parts, kind of similar to the scaling thing, is that UBC in general, and especially in the psych department, can be quite competitive at times, and it's really easy to fall into a comparison trap. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that you can do to control that. It's really just about self-management, but that can be really challenging at times.
For me, I want to talk about the faculty. One of my best aspects of the BA psychology program is that what I personally love is I just go to lectures and I listen. And I'd say the UBC faculty have storytellers. Like the profs, they're storytellers. It's like they're on stage and they're performing. It's amazing to listen to them. It really excites me even more and more specialized I get. And I'm listening to professors talk about the craziest things that I would never thought that I'd ever hear. And honestly, worst aspects, it took me time to think about this, but I came from a very small school. In my psychology class in school, there were 15 people, 12 people, 12 to 15 people. And so you'd know everyone and you'd interact with them and everything. But in UBC, in some classes, there's 100 people, even 200 people. But so that can be a challenging transition. However, like, for example, I'm part of Psyched, and everyone else has mentioned there's so many other opportunities outside of classes that you meet your people eventually through many other clubs and research activities.
One of the best things for me was I'm always really excited to see how many opportunities are offered to undergraduates right from the gate at UBC. Regardless of your year, you are always encouraged to participate in different research opportunities. I know for co-op, you have to be of a higher year to apply just because of the technical knowledge involved, but there's still so much access to profs. They're always more than happy to listen after class if you have questions or if you're just curious about working in their lab. The way that I got involved in my lab was my profs sent out adverts from the different labs to our class Canvas page. So there's always like this motivation to go out and find new ways to apply your degree for BSc behavioral neuroscience. One of the like not as preferable things, I think, is that it's sometimes difficult to manage your different commitments. That's more like a personal thing. Oftentimes you are in a class with students who are involved in everything on the planet. They have so many different research positions, and so it's sometimes easy to get overwhelmed with imposter syndrome. I think as Greta mentioned, it can sometimes get overwhelming, but it's important to just remember that you're in this program, you deserve to be in this as much as anyone else, and you work hard in order to learn what you need to in order to succeed. So having that self-confidence is very important.
Great, thank you guys. I just want to say I'm going to ask that maybe 3 people answer each question just because we have a lot to get through. But for the next question, I think this is a big one, is do you guys have any tips for applying to UBC or to your program specifically, anything that you guys think might be helpful? If I could get 3 people to answer that, please.
Can I have a really nice point that I want to say, that one thing is never self-reject yourself. Many high school students, some high school students from my school have talked to me recently saying that, is my GPA good enough? Should I apply to UBC? I'm like, apply. Never self-reject yourself. Let UBC reject you if they want to, but don't self-reject yourself, because I'll give the example of the IB, for example. The IB is out of 42 points in total, then your GPA gets converted. I know people who've gotten 38 out of 42, which is really good, and they've got rejected. And I know people who've gotten 30 out of 42 and they've got accepted. So don't decide your application strength based on your grade. give your best in the personal profile. Do your best with the references and all your answers that you write. So that's my biggest advice. That's it.
Would anyone else like to give some tips for applying to UBC?
I'd be glad to. I am a student from the US, so I applied as an international student, and I think in comparison to other universities, with UBC, there's a lot of stress on the personal profile, as it's called. The most important thing, as was mentioned in the presentation, is that don't try to tailor your application to what you think admissions wants to hear, because that's when you start using language that's not genuine to you. It doesn't feel as real. So when you're applying, make sure that you're just genuinely talking about your commitments and honestly how you feel you will continue them in university, because admissions really like in general in university, they are looking to see who is going to be a leader in their community, who is going to continue the great and awesome things that they've done in high school. How are they going to continue that in university? And if you show your passion about what you are involved in, that's more than enough to show that you have like the dedication and the commitment to continue that.
Can I get one more person? No, no other tips?
I can go.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
No worries. So I would say another big thing that I messed up on is give yourself a lot of time to work on the personal profile. I was definitely underestimating it. I wasn't planning on applying to UBC for undergrad, and a friend of mine was like, do it anyway, see if you get in. So I actually made my application the day before it was due, worked the entire day, spent 12 hours going through it, and it was not an experience I recommend. So definitely give yourself some time to work on that profile, maybe get some friends to read it over, family member, anyone who can look for some grammar edits, give you tips on, just the structure of it all. And as mentioned before, don't try to come across as exactly what you want the admissions team to think. They are totally looking for unique individuals who have unique experiences and are being genuine, talking about themselves, the activities they do, what they like to do. And yeah, I just think it'll be very beneficial in terms of your application to just be yourself.
These are really good points. Thank you, guys. Sort of continuing on from that, do you guys have any tips for like a good, successful transition from high school to university, or like any advice that you wish that first year you had known?
I can go. So I think one of the biggest shocks for me when I started university was definitely just getting adjusted to the fact that it was, the courses are, in my opinion, they're harder than in high school. I also came from IB, and if anyone is an IB, there's a bell curve and it usually works in your favor. So I like when I came to university and I saw, hey, my grades aren't, well, other than the psych courses, they weren't being curved upwards as nicely as what I was used to in high school. It was a little bit of a shocker for me, but and I think I was starting to get a little harder on myself for seeing grades that maybe weren't as high as when I was in high school. But it took me some time to realize that it's completely okay. University is a completely different environment. Your courses are brand new. You're also just like adjusting to university in general. And I will say, like, to everyone, work hard, obviously, in first year, but just don't be super hard on yourself. There is definitely an adjustment period. And so just, be aware of that.
I can go next. I want to just reiterate Kavya's point about just being really realistic with your expectations. I'm an international student, so the transition was definitely a tough one. But I think what really worked for me is that I actually told myself that if you're not homesick, if you're not crying in the first month, then something's wrong. Like that's because I knew from like experiences I've heard of students that everybody finds it difficult to adjust in like their first term. So the only way I guess to that way not think that this is only happening to you, which is what students generally think because they're used to receiving a certain grade in school and used to doing like really well or being the top of the class, and then you come to UBC when students who have been only at the top of the class are selected, and then you see that okay, you're not being in the top anymore, your average is going down, and what happens is that students, it takes a toll on their mental health. So I think you got to be really realistic with the fact that the courses are designed in a way that the average has to be 68. So it's already tough. And the only way that you can approach it in a proactive way is to then reach out to your professor, see what really works for the course, get as much tips from people who are designing it themselves. So spend time through resources using like office hours are there, and then there's like other resources like tutoring available on campus. What is the gist of this? Is that you have to go into it with the thing knowing that it's hard. So take advantage of all the resources that UBC has to offer to you for free, and that's just like the most proactive way that you can deal with it instead of like being hard on yourself about the fact that you're not doing as well as you had probably expected to.
That's really great. Thank you. And I guess to sort of continue that, I guess I'd like to ask you guys about adjusting to the university work-life balance and also self-care in general in university. Could I ask Greta, Abby, and Maria to answer these? I believe you guys had points you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so I think it's really good to start figuring out early how your workflow works best for you, because there's this idea that like there's a right way to do it. There's like the Pomodoro method or there's deep work, but it doesn't really matter what you do as long as it works for you. So take the time to figure out, are you more productive in the mornings? Are you more productive in the evenings? Do you work better in short bursts? Do you work better in long marathons? And then cater to that and give yourself time to do that. When it comes to incorporating like your personal life, it's really important, I think, to be really mindfully and actively scheduling that into your calendars. My friends and I, we block one day off every week. That's like sacred time for us to get together and do nothing, because it's really easy to let something like that fall on the back burner when you're dealing with coursework and volunteering and everything else. So prioritizing that is really challenging to do, but it's super important to actually give yourself that time to do it. For self-care, it's like such a huge commodified thing nowadays, and it is rightfully being important, but I don't think it really matters what exactly you do. Like, you can do all the right things, you can exercise, you can eat healthy, you can get 8 hours of sleep, and sometimes you're still gonna feel just horrible and not productive, and that's okay. I think the biggest thing I think the most important thing to self-care is having self-compassion, to give yourself permission to do what you need to do to feel better, regardless of whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah, I can go next. For me, it was self-awareness played a huge role in this. I remember I was always thinking, okay, so as Greta said, like, what works for you? Be realistic, what works for you and what doesn't. So for me, I know I don't work on the weekends. I'm not productive on the weekends. I can't do anything. Weekends for me is just to relax and take a time off. So I will not organize work or anything around the weekends. And then it's about, do you have a daily routine? So for me, I have a sacred morning routine that I must follow. If I don't follow the sacred morning routine, my work-life balance is going to be a mess. I'm not going to feel productive, not going to feel motivated to do anything. So that can be anything. That can be a 2-minute dance party after you wake up. That could be a skincare routine. That could be meditation. That could be playing, I don't know, 5 Call of Duty matches for 30 minutes and then getting to work. So I think for the past 3 years from high school to university, for me, it was mostly just building self-awareness and understanding, how do I know how much work I can do in one day and how much time I can spend with my friends, realistically. And FOMO is a big thing. I have FOMO a lot. And for some of you who don't know, FOMO means I'm horrible at acronyms. I just learned this recently. So it's fear of missing out. In high school, you know, you finish school, then you have sometimes you go hang out with your friends, but then you're at home with your parents. In university, your friends are always there. Especially me who lives on campus, my friends are like 2 minutes away all the time. It is crazy. You may be hanging out with your friends till 3 a.m. when you have class the next day at 9 a.m. or you have something you have to do. So for those things, I'd say communication. Surround yourself with people who understand what your needs are, because those are the relationships that you want to build. So going to university when you have full autonomy to decide who your people are, to me, that's a huge part of my self-care also, because when I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, I have people that I can talk to. I have people that we support each other. Because in university, your parents may not be so close to you. Like I'm an international student. So for me, it's I have my people there who we have fun together, we study together, and we cry with each other. Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you, guys. I just have a few more points I'd like us to get through before we start answering the questions on Slido. Could I just also get Katerina to talk about the entrance scholarships and how you apply to those and what tips you might have regarding getting entrance scholarships?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a recipient of the International Major Entrance Scholarship and also the Outstanding Entrance. I think they renamed it to Outstanding International or something scholarship. But it is an automatic application process. It is based on your application and personal profile. So you don't have to write more scholarship essays on top of what you already have to do for applications. You're automatically considered for them based on your application. So I think that the most important thing for them is to really focus on your personal profile. Make sure that all of your information is correct. I know that for one particular part of it, it asks you to indicate your coaches or any particularly significant mentors that you have had during your high school career. It can be a teacher, it can be an outside mentor, it can be a tutor, an athletic coach of some kind. For that, I highly recommend that you choose someone who you think is able to advocate for you, someone who is really able to sort of vouch for your abilities. For me specifically, in my personal profile, I described a leadership position that I had in school as part of the marching band. And over the course of 5 years, I got really close with my marching band director. And so I chose him to be my coach. And beforehand, just make sure that you approach whoever you're planning on indicating on your application and just give them a quick sort of, not like a warning, but like like just some quick advice on what you'd like them to highlight for you. For my director specifically, I just gave him a quick list of my accomplishments that he could look at, what I focused on as a leader in the marching band, and having that sort of tailoring of what your coach says about you, it really does help make the right impression on the admissions team. And again, just to like reiterate what we've been saying, you are more than qualified to apply to UBC. Don't limit yourself. Just be genuine in your application, talk about what you're passionate about, and the admissions team will recognize that if you are being true to your values and true to your goals. And choosing your coaches is just meant to reflect that. So yeah, regarding additional scholarships that may require extra applications, there are externally available scholarships which require essay writing, but the question was about entrance scholarships, so we can discuss that at a later time. But yeah.
Thank you. So just to wrap up before we start getting into the Slido questions, could I just ask everyone to briefly talk about what your plans are, or not everybody, whoever can jump in, but what are you guys' plans for after your undergraduate degree? And also, Kavya, could you also, because you're alumni and you're working, could you also just start us off by telling what you're doing and how your degree has helped you?
Yeah, sure. So I work at a tech company in Toronto, and I am basically part of like a new grad program. So a lot of the tech companies and consulting companies, for example, they recruit university grads, and you're kind of, for like the first year to 2 years of working, you're kind of doing different roles until you find your fit and where you want to stay in, and that's where you kind of continue to work at. So my role right now is I'm doing development work. So I'm kind of utilizing a lot of my computer science skills, but I also work doing like project management roles within the company. I would say how my degree has helped me, definitely the computer science part was super helpful. When I was doing my interviews, not just for my job, but also other jobs that I was applying to, a lot of them were very intrigued by my degree. When I put cognitive systems, a lot of them were like, I don't know what that is, explain it to me. And when I would explain it to them, I could tell that they were really interested, because a lot of the times when I'm speaking from like a technical perspective, when you're applying to a technical role, a lot of the people come with a straight background in like computer science or engineering. So I think they like the fact that I was coming from a very integrated degree and I had knowledge in other domains, which to them made me sound like a more interesting candidate. So that part, and also just, I think, previously, before getting this job, I'd done a lot of internships that were more machine learning related and artificial intelligence related. And with those internships, I really found it useful to have that psychological background as well, because they not only helped me in my knowledge of what I was working on, but they also helped me, discuss my solutions, for example. And so I think all in all, having the background not only helped me in my day-to-day like applications of my job, but also it made me a unique candidate when I was applying. It kind of made me stand out amongst, I think, other people that were applying.
All right, just for time's sake, could I get maybe 2 more people to briefly explain what they're interested in? Anyone? So we can get to the other questions. Maybe could I get Ria and Nick, would you like to jump in?
For sure. I'll be short. So as mentioned earlier, with the BSc in neuroscience, you can do quite a wide range of things. I'm personally planning on medical school after this year, with the end goal of specializing in psychiatry, so that I can kind of combine my interests in psychiatry or psychology and pharmacology and bring those two together.
So I'm interested in applying for Masters in Counseling or Public Policy. Those two are currently the 2 main areas that I'm interested in based on the experiences I've already had. So once my undergrad is done, I'll be just focusing on getting more and more experience in social help settings, particularly to be able to have like a strong application, because the Masters of Counseling needs like 3 years of solid experience in social help. And it's quite competitive. So I just want more to be able to build on more experiences before I apply and just take some time off between undergrad and masters to work. So that is the plan as of now.
All right, I think that's it for all our pre-written questions. So I think we'll get into our Slido. So if anyone still has any questions, you can still quickly put them in. We're going to start answering them now. So I see that the top most upvoted question right now is, what is the difference between psychology and the arts versus science stream? So could I get maybe Maria or Daniel to jump in and quickly go over that again?
Daniel, do you want to go over that? Daniel's still there, or I can. Okay, the main differences between the arts and the science streams that I think were a big factor for me when I was picking was whether you want your degree to include more like arts courses, if you want a more broader course like requirements and stuff like that. You also have to take more English courses if you're going into the arts degree. I think that the science, you only have to take 2 classes of English, but I think for an arts degree, you have to take more than 2 classes. I think probably 4, something like that. So if that's something, two? Oh, only two. Okay, so only two. But yeah, it's more of like an arts degree. And then with a science degree, you'll be taking all of the first year sciences. You have to take things like biochem too, second year biology. So even though neuroscience is under the psychology department, it is still a science degree. So you will still have to take all of those sciencey courses like physics and chemistry and biology.
All right. So another question I'm seeing a lot is, what was your high school average to get into UBC? I'm not sure if we can just say like, oh, my high school average was, I don't know if any of us remember. I think I'd just like to bring up what, I don't remember if it was Katarina or Abby said, but basically I would suggest that you guys not worry so much about your grades or your average. They really look at your personal profile, what you write and how you come across with your passions and things like that really matters. So I would say really don't worry about your grade. I suggest you try and apply anyways and do your best. Just don't worry about your grades so much. That's all I'll say about that. So moving on, there's another question. How does research work at UBC? How do you sign up and what does it consist of? So I guess there's sort of two sides to the coin. One of them is working at or participating in a research lab, and then the other one is participating as a research participant. Would someone like to explain how the research labs work at UBC?
I can talk to that. I generally, throughout the past 3 years, I worked in 3 labs, currently only working in one. And I started in my second year. And for me, the process is different for everyone. Some people say they're in class, the professor talks about their lab. So they go up to the professor and they go to their office hours, or they tell them, hey, I'm very interested in your research. Are you looking for any research assistants to help you? And professors love that. Professors want students to be engaged into their work. They're looking for that. But then some people are nervous, right? Some people don't want to approach a professor. So that was me in my second year. I was kind of nervous. So what I did was I just went to the Department of Psychology website. I looked at all the labs. I looked at the labs that I was interested in, and all of the labs have a website. I just went to the website, found somebody's email, the lab manager or the professor or the graduate student, and I just cold call all of them. I just emailed them with my resume and my transcript. And I just said, hey, and also do some background research on what their lab is doing and show that you're interested in that. And just say, hey, this is my resume. I love this part of your lab. I'd really love to join. Are you hiring? Some labs say that they're not hiring. Some labs don't mention it at all. I'd say don't look for that. Just email them. That's what I did. And I emailed maybe 10, 6 didn't reply, 2 said no, and then 2 said yes. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also, just as a side note, say you're in the psychology program, you don't necessarily have to participate in a psychology lab. For example, I have a friend who's doing psychology, but she's in a kinesiology lab because she's interested in health psychology. So you can really apply to whatever labs you're interested in and want to get involved in, and just get a feel for if you like participating in research or not, because that is one of the career options with psychology. So if you want to cross that off your list, that's great. And then you can also be a participant, which I won't get into because I think you'll come across that if you enter the psych department. They'll make it very clear how you can participate in any studies. And what does it consist of? So if we're talking about working as a research assistant, you could be doing basic data analyses, you could be running participants in studies, you could be doing meta-analyses or looking for other studies to support the study that you're working on. It's really eclectic and it really depends on the lab that you're currently in. Next question. I'm looking at a lot of different psychology programs across Canada. Why should I choose UBC? Good one. Does anyone want to hop on that?
I can answer very quickly. So okay. I know like another question below that I think is asking about the differences between psychology programs in different schools. I think that content-wise, a lot of it is the same regardless of which school you go to. The reason I wanted to go to UBC specifically was the environment and the opportunities that were available at the school as a whole. I think, you know, this is just my opinion. I think like different schools will have similar programs and you'll probably graduate having learned very similar things regardless of which school you went to. But I definitely think the environment at UBC is unmatched in Canada. And like I'm speaking from being in Ontario and having friends as well that have gone to all schools like throughout the country. So for me, that was like the main deciding factor.
Yeah, that's really true. And also like involvement opportunities. I feel like we could have a whole like 1 hour event on like all the different ways to get involved at UBC and it wouldn't even be enough. Like truly, it's amazing how many different things you can do that will like help you discover what you like and will help you increase your potential at UBC. Next question, how are classes or labs being done during this time? This is really good question, actually. Would anyone like to explain how their classes are going or how their classes are being done?
I'd be glad to. Right now I am taking the two out of the psychology classes. I'm taking 270 and 277, which are the Introduction to Behavioral Neuroscience and Statistics. So I know that we mentioned earlier that in second year it can be a lot of fun to dissect sheep brain and all that. Unfortunately, because we are distance from campus, that is not all that feasible. But the TAs for my 270 class were so accommodating. We actually had a live brain dissection where they went through and actually did it themselves on camera for us. They also spent the entire summer designing a course with photos and diagrams and super detailed explanations and different resources for learning neuroanatomy, which I can't imagine spending like a whole summer looking at sheep brain. That's amazing. They really did very well with integrating that. You also get, I also just wanted to allude really quickly to a previous question that Jenny mentioned. Regarding research, you don't have to work in a lab as well. There's also the Euro/Rex program, which is the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program. And it is fantastic for just dipping your feet into research. You don't have to necessarily apply to a lab. There you work with a mentor and you do a quick research project if you just want to take a look at research. Also, the STEM competition for Indicium is also really good if you just want to take a look at research and see if it is an option for you rather than jumping headfirst into necessarily a lab position. It's such a good program and they really do their best to match you with someone. You do a literature review, you can design a whole experiment. So that's also very valuable as well.
Thank you. And also, guys, as a note, if you have any follow-up questions on any of these topics, feel free to reach out to us through any of the ways of, our email or our social media, and we can totally get back to you and answer more specifically. Having said that, we are over the time limit of our event. We totally understand if you guys have other time commitments that you need to get to and you need to leave. I think we will continue to answer questions, right, Maria? And of course, this event is recorded and we will send out a recording of this to everyone who signed up. So if you do need to leave, I just want to say feel free to, but we will still be here continuing on. And thank you for coming.
As long as the panelists are okay staying a little bit longer, we'll just run over time a little bit more and get a couple more questions in. Awesome.
All right. So continuing on, question that popped up to the top is how much time do you spend studying daily? I feel like this is a really difficult question to answer because it's going to depend on what program you're in, what courses you're enrolled in, which professors you're taking the course with. Is it midterm season or is it like 2 weeks into term? But if anybody would like to try and explain how that fluctuates, that'd be really great. Anybody?
I think you covered the main points. all I would say is that it's beneficial to plan ahead if you have a midterm, so don't leave it for the like last moment. And one thing that I've seen Ross recommend, and something that I think works as well, is that after class you just come back home and read over what was covered and do your read either the notes from the class or do whatever reading that is assigned for the class before the class starts, so you already have context as to what is going to be covered in class. But in terms of like hardcore studying, I don't think I've done that every single day. But of course, it depends on the kind of courses you're taking. Some courses have like discussion components due every week or small quizzes due every week. So, and if you're taking multiple of those, and of course, you have to do something or the other every day. But a majority of psychology courses have like midterms, like 3 midterms, and spaced out over 3 weeks. So you don't necessarily have to study every day, and you can study closer to the date, like 10 days before, a week before. So it really fluctuates, but the main thing is to make sure that you don't cram the material and give yourself enough time to process it and ask doubts to the professor.
So I will be a very honest student. So the start of the term, I'm studying a little bit day by day. It's just 1 hour. I'm keeping in track with the syllabus. And then, you just, sometimes the term gets the best of you. And you're studying for 6 hours, catching up to the syllabus. That happens. Not all of us are perfect. So it really depends on your habits. You could afford to just study 1 hour every day in small chunks and you will be up to date, organized, and perfect. Or sometimes, you'll slack off for a few days and you'll fall behind, and then you got to study a lot to catch up to the midterm. It depends on you.
Yeah, that's
I
very
also
true.
just want to quickly say that the amount of hours that you spend studying does not necessarily say anything about your abilities, like quality over quantity.
I see a question being asked in chat. I think I will cover it because we do get this question a lot, but just as a reminder to please use the Slido. It's easier for us to see it that way. But the question is, a lot of people say that psychology is a very broad degree and therefore it is difficult to get good jobs after graduation unless you receive a master's or PhD. Is this true? Short answer, absolutely not. Not even a little bit. So would anyone like to sort of explain how broad psychology can be applied in careers?
Yeah, okay. So my favorite sentence is, your degree it doesn't matter what your degree is, it matters what you can make out of your degree. So the fact that it's so broad, your identity and your skills come into play a lot. So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna get a job because I'm a major in psychology. It's, oh, I'm gonna get a job because this is me and I have a major in psychology. So the best thing about psychology is that you learn so many things. You learn about yourself, you learn about human beings, you learn about the world. And in every job, there are human beings. So what you do with psychology, that matters more than getting a major in psychology itself.
Yeah, and don't forget UBC, our thing is tu mest, right? Our like Latin thing, which means it's up to you, right? So that kind of is true. Anyone else want to jump in on that?
I could say that being in the work environment right now, post-grad, everyone I work with comes from a very different background. And so one thing I've realized is, it really doesn't matter the actual degree you do, as long as, you know what you want to take out of it, and you know how you can use your degree strategically to get what you want. A good example is, for example, marketing. I think this is brought up a lot. It's not a very obvious path from psychology. You'll see a lot of people that are marketing majors and like Sauder at our business school, but there's a lot of students from psychology that go into marketing because you can always apply a lot of the skills that you learn, whether directly or indirectly, in almost any job. And let's just say that you're like 2 years into your psychology degree and you're like, wait, I want to work in marketing, or I want to work as like a data analyst or something that you don't think is directly related to your degree. Just know you're not making a waste of your degree at all. There's always things you can pull out of it. And I would say that when I got a chance to like shadow a recruitment event that we were having this year, and I know one of the main points that we were like, I guess, grading people on was just how confident and comfortable they were talking about how they are going to use what they've learned or their past experience into this new job. And also, if you want to work at something that you don't think is related, there's always ways that you can add that content into your degree, whether it's taking electives, adding a minor. So don't worry about it. That's my spiel.
I totally agree. I think I was going to say something, but I kind of forgot. Oh, yeah. So there are, of course, some jobs that you will need to get certain requirements for. So if you're dead set on becoming a clinical psychologist, you will need to fulfill those requirements. But generally speaking, it's much more flexible, and it can really, like everybody said, be applied to a lot, like totally different fields that you could have never thought that psychology could play into. It's quite a versatile degree. So I think we'll do one more question, and then we'll probably end there. So I'm seeing what should you write about your personal profile? Is it only about the clubs and teams? I think we'll do that one for our last question. Does anyone like to?
I can speak to this quickly. So it definitely doesn't have to only be clubs and teams. On my profile personally, I started DJing when I was a kid and picked that up as a hobby and for work. So I totally talked about that for one of those, I think, 5 options you fill out of extracurricular activities, and just talked about, oh, this is something I really like to do. It could be like an instrument or sport, activity, whatever, anything like that. And I kind of just talked about how I turned something I enjoyed into a business, and yeah, basically was able to support myself throughout high school by DJing. But yeah, it definitely is not exclusive to just teams or clubs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're really looking for what you took from these experiences. Doesn't matter so much what the experience is. It's more about like these key skills that you got from it: responsibility, accountability, leadership, teamwork. These are all the key qualities that they're looking for. So and as Katarina said, whatever your passions are, what do you really want to pursue? How do you want to change the world? It's these soft qualities and details about you that they want to know, more so the experiences necessarily. Does anyone want to add
Also,
on?
like also your life, how your life has shaped you to be who you are today. I talked about how my parents' divorce when I was a kid shaped me, shaped my identity. And that wasn't the question of who are you. I remember that was one of the questions in the personal profile. So it's about your life events, about your narrative identity. They're looking for that.
All right, I think we're going to have to stop here because we are over time. Just before I hand this back over to Maria or Daniel, I want to say if you guys have any questions you really want answered, you can contact us through our email or social media. Feel free. And also, if you apply for a mentor, a lot of these questions can also be directed at your mentor. They'll be able to help you more personally with some of these concerns. So I guess I'll hand it back to Maria or Daniel.
Thanks, Jenny. So thank you all for showing up today, and for the ones that stuck behind, like almost 15 minutes over. So thank you so much for coming. And yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to email any of us. It'll be on the slides, and I will email you all with the recording as well as the slides after this event. And hopefully, even if some of you haven't wanted a mentor in the past, you want to email me and let me know that you are actually interested, that would be great, and we can set you up. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to our amazing panelists.
Thank you so much for hosting.
Thank you for having us.
Guys.
Thank you, Psyched internal team. You did an amazing job.